Hi, I just wanted to touch bases for the week, and this will be a shorter video, I suppose. So well, actually, Instagram time, 15 minutes. Um, but I wanted to talk about the week's event or events. I think it was just one I want to focus on, though. And that is experientially. I've been noticing how all the things and activities that are drawing us away from the truth of who we are, I've been noticing them more in action and clarity than from before by comparison. And I think I've talked about that before, but I experienced one of those episodes, I should say, because they do happen from time to time, fairly frequently. And the idea is to recognize them as frequently as they occur and to be able to dissipate them. Or actually, not for me to be able to dissipate them, but for them to dissipate on their own, because when something is recognized, it doesn't give it the power to come in and take over like it normally does. So, with that background, during the week or at the end of the week, I had an episode that took me away from just being and doing me day by day for maybe a couple of weeks, uninterrupted, by allowing circumstances to, I'll use the words, take me down. So those couple of weeks went by, and it was wonderful seeing the transparency occur of keeping my source at hand and true nature was shining. So I think too much, but it's a word we use a lot to say, well, I think this and I think that. But experientially anyway, I'm trying to describe this event, but I'm trying to also express what led up, or, how things were before. And I know I've talked about my identity breaking up and how I am about that. I think I've brought it up that I was putting it back together in a new way or something like that, but that just isn't it at all. The identity breaks up so that you can actually see the transparency of things, I think, because that's how I'm feeling it, is since my identity has done that breaking apart thing, like a picture puzzle, that all the pieces are there, but there's space in between each puzzle. Well, that experience from before, which I've talked about before, was seeing myself as not solid anymore. And not being solid seemed as if it should be a problem to me. But in the exploration I've done through this all, or not any exploration at all, actually, through the things that have been happening, I've noticed that the breaking apart of those puzzle pieces was allowing more transparency to occur of being able to recognize who you truly are and be in the world at the same time. Meaning, go out into the world being transparent and the world being transparent so that you can actually see Source in all things and how we're all connected with love of Source and beauty of Source. Source meaning whatever word you want to put to it, infinite being, God, whatever suits your fancy. For me, I like the word God because it's simple and plain and it takes me right there, so it's good. So with that being said, the identity breaking and things being more transparent is a good thing, and not taking me away from the solidity, but actually instead of solidity, it has provided me with more grounding to who I truly am. So, and this, when I say I or me, I'm speaking. We're all one. We're all threaded with pure being and God, or we're all emanate from that place. So we just have to start by coming back to ourselves and coming from the inside out so that we can bring that into the world. So that transparency was good, and I was feeling very grounded, or more grounded. I don't know what very means when you don't have a comparison to it and haven't done it before, but nonetheless, I had an instance occur on Thursday evening that brought me down. And it was a circumstance, and it just ungrounded me. And it was beautiful because I stayed ungrounded and flopping around like a fish out of water and hurting over it. You know, all those emotions that come with the separate self, the fragmented one, the one that thinks that they're apart from everything else. So that place happened, which used to actually be where I would come from, but more so than not. But anyway, so my stability, everything was a mess. I was down. And then, as a couple of, maybe on the third day, I guess, you'd say I rose again. What the heck? I'm just saying the third day, not relating it to anything. That was just noticing. I was just noticing that. Well, anyway, on the third day, thereabout, the comparison of that transparency and the falling apart and the two different ways that came from, that place of being, that source, that no source, the comparison was so drastic that I could immediately see the two different places and feeling the compassion and where I've been coming from and where I was. So I was seeing two different places in one, right here in front of me. So, and it wasn't that I was, or maybe it was. Anyway, the two places were visible as to where I'd come from and how easy those things conducted my life, even when my head thought that I was so much deeper and so much one with everyone, or all of this, the way I thought and felt was, I logicked myself from my head that I was so knowing or whatever. Anyway, the contradiction, not the contradiction, but the comparison of being solid and knowing how I felt and all of this, and then transitioning to being from source and conducting, or not conducting, but just being from that place, I felt so free and loving, and you just are. And then being knocked off my feet, that other place, that place from fear and lack, and where I'd been coming from for so many years. I'm 73, so all those years of coming from that place and not even realizing it and thinking I'm growing and I'm doing this and that and all these great things. In actuality, I was just reaching out and using things and logic and reasoning to make those things come together the way that would make me feel good, I guess, about myself in the world, or myself in the world, or and still having that fear and lack and knowing it. And then now feeling myself coming from that place without that fear and lack, and transparent, and feeling grounded but not solid. It's a beautiful comparison, and so obvious, of the me without source and the me with source. And the experience of that, the experience of the identity breaking, the solidity, and then experiencing being in that place felt like, actually, it felt like, oh, I had this, it wasn't going to go away, but then poof, it did. I broke down, or I not broke down, but I was down. It brought me down. The circumstance brought me down. But then the comparison just brought me right back up. And in such a short period, that's beautiful. And it didn't bring me up. It just brought me back to that loving, open space without the fear and lack. Because the comparison made it so obvious of what was going on in life, period. In life. Not my life. In life. That was it. That's the big to-do. It was no longer me. It was life showing me that's life, how that happens. And that it's not real. Those places, those down places, are not the truth. Good night.